there, listeners. Welcome to Shit That Goes On in Our Heads, the podcast where we normalize conversations around mental health.
That's right. I'm Dirty Skittles, and alongside my amazing co-host, Rex, we are here to share real stories and tips from our incredible guests.
Each episode, we deep dive into struggles and triumphs of mental health, offering practical advice and heartfelt support.
Because no one should feel alone in their journey. Join us as we break the stigma and build a community of understanding and compassion.
Tune in and let's start talking about the shit that goes on in our heads. Three, two, one.
Welcome back to another episode of Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. I'm Dirty Skittles, and I'm joined here today with my co-host Rex and Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi. Nice to be here with you.
Yes. Where are you located?
I am outside of Denver. If you've ever heard of the Red Rocks Amphitheater, that's my neighborhood.
Very cool. That's when they do like the really cool concerts, right?
Yeah.
I know. I only get to see it on like social media. I haven't been there in person, but I'm like, oh, it's really cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you gone to see any shows there?
To be honest with you, I'm a total introvert and my nervous system is touch and go. So I don't do concerts because they're really overstimulating for me. But I do a lot of hikes around the amphitheater. And it's this incredible piece of nature where the plates have just jutted out of the earth in this incredible arrangement. So I hear the concerts are incredible. I can see the lights from my house, but I have to protect my nervous system sometimes.
Wow, very cool. When did you learn that about yourself? That it was a bit much.
I mean, it was certainly in my college years. I just did all the things I thought I was supposed to do and, got myself into all kinds of really weird internal experiences of burnout and exhaustion. And then I went through grad school and I learned a little more about therapy and art therapy. And it wasn't until after grad school that I pursued other forms of my own healing and trainings. And the more, probably in the last 10 years or so, I've really gotten clear on the gifts of introversion and some of the needs of being an introvert. I read the book Quiet, which I just love so much. It's so validating and affirming of introversion without being shaming or pathologizing it all. And then more recently, Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory has been really helpful for me. I've gotten trained in it and now I work with my clients with that and just understanding the nervous system at that level and really honoring it and thinking about nourishing from that level has been very life-changing.
Yeah, that's something I picked up. The reason why I asked was because when you said it, I heard it and I was like, wow, unapologetic. This is just what it is. And I'm going to do this I feel like I'm the only introverted Leo. I like to, be with friends and stuff, but I oftentimes will come back and I say it almost as a joke because I'm afraid to be like, I actually don't like doing those things. And I oftentimes will tell my husband, like, I'm just overstimulated. Like it's too much. I can have it maybe in small doses, but like what you just said, I'm struggling internally to just take it in the small doses. Like, I'm like, I just want to be inside. I want to read a good book. I want to light a candle and just sort of be alone in that moment.
Yeah.
A lot of people get it.
It's really hard to shrug off all of society's expectations for what fun looks like and what socializing looks like. And I can relate to the Leo thing because I'm an Aries and, another fire sign. And I would love nothing more than to just be like on my front porch with a good book and watching all the other people go to Red Rock for the concert.
Yeah, I'm on this journey and I feel like I realized it maybe yesterday in the shower. Where right now we are visiting my parents and we're in Orlando. And while I love my family and I love being around them and all of the personalities, it's so loud here. And I was in the shower and I'm trying to think like, what is bothering me? Like, what is really bugging me? Because I'm not my same person. And I realized it was because I have been working without really consciously thinking about it and making my safe space our home in Georgia. And what that means for me is I have like those little nooks where I can just be quiet and be alone and fully embrace what that means for me. And now, I'm not in that element. I'm not sad. I'm like, I started gardening. I'm like, I just want to be outside and like hear the birds and look at my tomatoes and like, that's my idea of fun. So
Sounds lovely to me.
Right? What about you, G-Rex?
So I am the direct opposite of both of you. I am a huge extrovert. And to answer your question about concert at Red Rocks, I've seen several. So I saw the Doobie Brothers there. I saw Journey there. I saw you two.
Journey?
Yeah, I saw. Dude, I'm old. I'm right. I am a boomer. I am a boomer. Okay. I saw a ton of concerts there. I am going to make a PSA. If you do go to Red Rocks and you go to see a concert, don't go drunk. The steps are very sharp. Okay.
Wow. Good PSA.
That is my PSA.
Mm-hmm.
But I may have a little introversion in me, even though I'm a huge extrovert. I will tell you, COVID, I thought was punishment to me. It truly was. But I find that even like living up here in upstate New York, there are days I just want to be by myself. But, I get to go out to my beautiful backyard. I have tons of nature around me. And it may be an age thing for me too. My dynamics are different now. I don't live in a big city. I don't go into an office every day. But I'm okay with it because I get a lot of writing done or journaling done or just a little bit of introspection done. I'm interested to find out. I'll probably go ask ChatGPT this later on. But is there a change that kind of triggers in you as you get older, right? That you may have been this huge extrovert and now all you want to do is be left alone.
I could probably speculate into why that might be. There might be a few reasons. I mean, I think we know, especially in female anatomy, the way that our hormones change. Unlike the male anatomy, that's pretty steady and changes a little towards end of life. But I think female anatomy is so cyclical and seasonal, and there's certainly some there. But I wonder too if it's hand in hand with your healing process. Like if somehow the extroversion can sometimes mask your authentic self and act as a trauma response. And the more you heal, the less you're using that mask and the more honest you can be with coming close to yourself and feeling your true feelings.
Wow. You totally hit the nail on the head. I learned something. I'm telling you, when I do the transcript for this, I'm going to just take that one little transcript and I'm going to put it on my wall. That is so spot on. Because with my healing, when I had my breakdown, nobody knew how terrified or how depressed I was. I had a really good mask. And once I shed that skin and let people see what was on the inside, they were terrified, right? And I'm now just, getting used to shedding my old skin and embracing this new skin that I have. And I'm in a really good place. I'm so thankful to be alive. So thankful that, I get to do this. I get to, have this podcast with my best friend, that I get to see my true self. At 60, I'm going to be 61 in a month. How that happened, I have no idea.
That's incredible.
Grace of God.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's really interesting to see how we shapeshift and change and grow as we heal. Sometimes we become versions of ourselves that we couldn't even imagine before when we were stuck in survival mode or in trauma response. So I think we have to always be open to who our future selves might be and try not to anticipate them, just approach them with curiosity because they could be wildly different than our past selves.
This is, I feel like, what I learned in therapy the most, because I had gone to therapy on and off, and then I found this therapist that I owe her so much gratitude, because it took that session and that year and a half long with her to realize what I had considered who I was, and my normal state of being was a fight or flight mode that I had carried with me since childhood trauma. So it just was all I knew. And then being challenged to not only learn, what it is that was triggering me and all of those things, but learn that there's more to me than just what I had considered this normal state of being, and that there are other facets. And I think every day I'm still, and I think humans just in general, every day you're still evolving and learning and becoming maybe a different version of yourself, or just expanding more of who you are. And so, yeah, learning to embrace those new parts of yourself once you take that mask off and realize there's more to me than that version. Like I like to be inside and read books and like just those little things have been, I think that's beautiful. Like that's the beauty of life is sticking around to figure that out. And
Absolutely. And I don't know that those layers can shed without feeling really safe inside your own skin. And I think safety also happens in layers where, you start to feel a little bit more comfortable with the exposure to your trauma or to your experiences, maybe your patterns. And as you start to explore yourself and you increase your threshold of safety, then you feel a little safer to go deeper and you feel a little safer to reach out and make friends in alignment with that intention and share what you've learned, like you're both doing on this awesome podcast. And so it's like the more expansive you get, the deeper you go and the safer you feel and the more you find.
Yeah. So how did you start your journey to where you are now? Like you seem very like you got it. Like I'm like, yes, everything just so like centered and aligned. And how did that start for you?
Well, first of all, I'm certainly not like at any destination. I see myself as a fellow traveler on this journey, and I have a lot to learn still and a lot of healing to do. So I just want to put that out there that, by no means am I a guru. And I don't really know that there is a such thing as a guru. If you ever find one, like run, because it's probably not true.
Probably wants to sell you a car warranty.
If you find one, it might be a cult.
Yeah. So like finding guides who are also doing the work and who admit that they're not there yet is probably, that's what I look for when I choose therapists and healers. So to answer your question, it has been a long, winding, meandering road for me. I don't know if when you were both kiddos, if you ever drew treasure maps, it feels that there have been times where it feels like crossing a desert without water and times where it feels like rocky chasm that I might fall down and other times where it's okay. And there might be like a little glimmer. So I think for me, I was a very sensitive child, very curious, creative, and exposed to a ton of relational trauma. So I didn't even realize that's what was going on until I left the nest and went to college. And then I went into this tailspin of like, holy moly, I'm not okay. I don't really know how to get okay. And that's when I found my very first therapist and sort of started to do a little bit of introspective work and paid out of pocket. My family didn't really want to support me in the healing because people are harder to control when they're healing and healthy. So I had to really walk this journey by myself. And every layer of it just got, more clarity, stronger community, a lot of healing and layers. And then there was a point in college where I found myself studying psychology and art as a double major. Like, what do I do with this? And this is when Google was like this exciting new tool. So I plugged that question into Google, and Google introduced me to art therapy. I had never heard of it before. And so I went to a master's program for art therapy, and it was really cool. The program I went to in Boulder, Colorado, called Naropa University, requires that you do your own therapy as you're moving through that program. And it was an incredible opportunity to just keep doing the work and keep facing the layers that were coming up and presenting. And after that, I sort of delved into private practice. I worked in different populations, learned a lot, saw a lot of mirrors, myself and reflected by other people's diagnoses and issues and countertransference. And so it was always, a really nice opportunity to see what was coming up in me in response to my work and my environment. And I think the most profound growth spurt I ever had was in 2017. I found my way into a really cool retreat community that did women's retreats with these two incredible facilitators, one of whom, this Japanese woman, is still my therapist to this day. She's just incredible. And another was a woman in DC who is just really skillful at deep dive inner work. And I did several retreats, built some really incredible connections within this community that these two healers had created. And I feel like that expanded me to a point that I'm still really benefiting from and have grown from. Like it became my new baseline. And from that point, I was able to make some pretty radical changes in my life to draw me back into alignment in terms of who's in my life, who has access to me, who doesn't, what my career looks like, how I share my story with integrity, what integrity even is and how it shows up, how it melds together with authenticity. So it's really been a lot of growth and healing since the get-go. And I wonder if it'll always be that way, if that's just part of my personality and who I am, or if at some point I'll just be like, all right, we can coast for a while. But there's really been a lot of work that felt like I had to drudge through to get to this point. And I'm hopeful at some point for just a season of peace where I can enjoy a lot of this. Right now, it's all, still integrating. And sometimes the integration process takes decades to take a life.
Yeah. What did you have like a friend, like when you went to see your very first therapist, how did that get introduced in your life? Like, how did you, I guess, seek out help? Like, was somebody like, hey, maybe you should see a therapist, or was it just something you knew?
It was something I came to on my own because I like to go for walks. That's how I do my meditative process. I just love being in nature. And even then, I like to go for walks when I was like 18, just getting into college. But I found myself walking around the streets of Denver late at night at dark hours that weren't safe. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I would feel so dysregulated at 9, 10 p.m. that I would go for a walk and then I'd be like, oh no, I got to get home. This doesn't feel safe. And I was disembodied to the point where I almost didn't realize I was unsafe until it was dangerous. And so at that point, I was cool. Like, it's a really cool experience that students have to be able to go to their school counseling as a starting point. And so, so it was really just like my inner compass that was like, this is probably not headed in the right direction.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was curious because again, relating and thinking like, I remember for me, I knew I needed it. So like, I knew I needed to do the work on myself and to be better about it and to seek professional help. But I remember almost like not telling everybody right away because I was just like, it just was one of those things. I think my parents, my mom it was like, you got to figure it out on your own. You just figure it out and you just suck it up, walk it off, rub some dirt on it. You're going to be fine kind of mentality. But I knew that there was more to it than that. It wasn't just something I could walk off or be okay with. I needed to dive into it a little bit more and figure out what it was that was causing me so much stress and anxiety and stuff. So that was why I asked. I was curious if your story would be similar or a friend or somebody kind of introducing you to that idea. Rex, what about you? Like what?
So for me, like, I probably needed therapy my entire life, but because I'm a boomer, right? We did not talk about mental health at all. I wasn't brought up in school. It wasn't brought up in our households. Carried it through with me, my entire life until the last quarter of 2022 when literally everything in the world that could go wrong did. And I just didn't have, as a true empath, I'm used to taking on everybody else's stuff and not dealing with my own. Did a really good job of that until I woke up on Christmas Day and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And literally, I was just terrified. And I didn't know what to do because I couldn't find my voice and I couldn't find my footing. And I couldn't tell my wife, I couldn't tell anybody what was going on because I didn't understand what I was feeling. But all I knew in the inside is that I was just done. So I picked up the phone and I called like 988, and the lady on the other side of the line was amazing. She was calm. She was patient. She walked me off that ledge because I literally was right on the ledge. The very next day, I started therapy. It's not the same therapist I'm with right now. I had to do like what you call it, dirty skittles, is speed date your therapist. I had to speed date my therapist because I really needed somebody that could help me find out what was going on. But therapy's helped me immensely. Like now I know all about boundaries. I preach self-care and self-love because those are all the things I didn't do for myself. I did it for everybody else. But once I learned to do it for myself, I'm way happier. My wife said this is the happiest she's seen me in 20 years because I got to shed a lot of that I got to start shedding my old skin.
Yeah. I mean, learning boundaries was huge. First of all, I don't think I totally understood what that could mean. And then I think once I realized that I did have certain boundaries that needed to be set, I remember almost being a little afraid to set it, especially with family, right? Like there's some people that just, I think becoming okay knowing that I didn't have to please somebody else, right? Like I have boundaries, and if you can abide by them, great. If not, I don't have to deal with you. Like these just are not a part of my everyday life, sadly. That sounds really sad and mean, but was, Kate, for you, setting boundaries something that was hard to do?
I think, like you said, it's harder with certain people than others. It was interesting when I learned the difference between boundaries and requests, because I think that setting a boundary was asking for what you needed from someone. But now I understand them to be, a request is something you can ask for someone, but a boundary is a declaration of what you will do when your edges are pressed that requires no participation from the other person. They don't have to do anything. It's, if you speak to me this way, I will hang up the phone. That's all. You can choose to do what you want. This is what I will do. And I found that just having that clarity really made a difference. For me, the semantics of things, like having the right word to match the experience, helps.
Yeah.
It's helpful. But, I think there are a lot of cultural narratives around family and partnership, certain relationships that we believe we're supposed to be boundaryless in order to have love, and that love should be unconditional, when I think we should have some conditions, even with our closest people. Like, my truest love in my life right now is definitely my husband. And if he's not nice to me, if he's abusive to me, I'm out. Like, those are my conditions. And I think that whether you have conditions on that basic level, or if the conditions, are a little more stringent, a little more specific for other types of, more volatile relationships, we got to have them. And so those might be in the category of boundaries too. And boundaries are, it's like a muscle, I think, that you learn to grow. At first, it's really hard. And then you practice with safe people, you get a positive result, or you lose certain people who were never meant to stay. And the muscle gets stronger, and setting boundaries becomes almost an automatic behavior that you're really comfortable with because it feels like self-love.
Yeah. I like going back to what you said, like the difference between a request and then setting a firm boundary. I remember literally the very first time I set a firm boundary with somebody that was a family member. As the words left my mouth and I was setting this boundary, I remember feeling so free, because I think unknowingly I had been holding this, like the stress of it all. And then finally setting that boundary and being able to release that. And it was no longer my burden to carry. Like, I'm telling you, this is my boundary. And I remember telling my therapist, I was like, I felt like I was almost having an anxiety attack, but I could breathe and I wasn't crying. And I was like, it was euphoric. Essentially, it was euphoria. I was like, oh shit, like I finally broke that chain, set the boundary. And that person tried to test it once. It's like, I gotta go. And they never tested it again. And I was like, that shit worked. The full time.
That's the interesting piece, is like, you have to stick with your boundary too. If once it's tested, when pressure is applied, it's really important not to collapse, because that just defeats the purpose of a boundary. So if you feel the strength within you that a boundary needs to be set, then you also have to abide by that same strength to keep it for yourself. Is an honoring process for yourself and for the other person, because you're showing them what you're willing to tolerate and how you're willing to be treated. And if you collapse on that, it's confusing the message that you're giving them too. So it's ultimately kind, to be honest with you all about this.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, boundaries have been so important. So my boundary is like no drama, right? And yes, I have lost friends since I've come through this healing, my own healing. But it is so freeing. Oh my God, like just a huge weight came off my shoulder, because now I just do not get involved with drama. If it smells like drama, it doesn't come in the box.
Yeah.
Because I just don't have time for it. Like, is this going to benefit me? Probably not. Is it going to drag me down the rabbit hole? Probably yes. I choose which things I want to get involved in. And that's really hard as an empath because as empaths, we want to help everybody. No. See, now it's my time and I'm going to take care of me. And not everybody, not a lot of my friends can understand that. So,
yeah,
Beautiful.
that ties what I was going to say is that I feel like the people that want to be a part of your life will respect your boundaries. And those are the people that are worth keeping around. If you have somebody who doesn't respect it, then you gotta let them go. Like I would never cross somebody else's boundary. And so that's all I expect in return is that people don't do the same thing. So
I think you grow to love boundaries when you do this work and hope that the other people in your life have them too and can express them to you so that you can be respectful of them. Because if you know where their edges are, then you can respect them. And if they know where yours are, then you can have a dynamic where you're both having your needs met. You both feel comfortable with boundaries, with saying no, with expressing needs. So I've come to love boundaries. And it's sort of a requirement for me. When I meet new friends, it's like one of things that I say, this is important to me and this is how it might show up with us. Like, are you good with that? It's so funny. I like interview people now. I'm like, if this is what it's like to be friends with Kate, like, do you want this?
Right. But like, that's such a healthy way, I think, of handling it versus just, keeping it to yourself and then hoping that they don't do something that is going to be offensive or make you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. So I think it's a good philosophy and a good practice is to put that out there and let people know what they can expect and let them choose if they want to be a part of it or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's having relationships that have dignity and respect for one another. And I think from the get-go, if you can be honest with someone and they receive it well, it's a really good sign. It's a green light.
Right. I know.
I think boundaries are the ultimate self-love, self-care. So it is the best thing you can ever do for yourself.
Yeah. I think it comes a lot to in knowing yourself first and knowing what your boundaries are. Because there's not like a book of like boundaries to try, right? Like, I think you have to, can you imagine? But I think you have to find who you are. And that was part of my journey is figuring out who I was and then realizing I don't like it when they do this and then setting that boundary. So it's hard. It's hard, especially if you lose yourself and like I was infamous for dedicating every waking moment of my life to like my significant other or relationships I was in. And then you forget who you are. And then part of like that breakup and recovery is figuring out who you are again without that other person or without being what they need. Right now you have to be what you need. So food for thought.
Absolutely.
So I have a question for you. I know that like part of your self-love is hiking and getting out in nature. What are some of your other self-care and self-love tips and tricks?
So focused on that these days. It was really important after I went through a really profound period of burnout in the peak of the pandemic. It became important for me to receive from other people, which is sort of counter to what I want because I'd like to just do it all myself and not need other people. And I do get overstimulated. So finding ways to receive energy work or body work or going for a walk with someone that does feel like aligned connection and sharing something with them about myself. That has actually been a paradoxical kind of self-care that has surprised me for the positive. I think asking for help and learning how to receive it is really loving to the self to rewire some of those narratives that might be based on perfectionism or relationships being unsafe and always feeling like I need to protect myself. That, these are old narratives that I operated from for a really long time. So aligned connection certainly is one. Also being really intentional about how I treat the physical body. So really making sure that I drink all the water I need. I've chosen for my body to stop drinking alcohol. I found that what I thought, was a fun way to participate in things or end a hard day actually was poisonous and it was interfering with sleep. And so listening to things like that are countercultural, but that are still really important for me has been another piece of self-care. And I think the countercultural aspect itself is self-care, like being willing to answer the call of what you truly need, even if society doesn't love it. And even if you might feel like the only one on earth who on a Saturday night is drinking tea and reading a book, I think that's a really important form of self-care that connects with authenticity. And the other one I have to pitch, just because, I'm an art therapist, is being creative is probably one of my most favorite forms of self-care. I was actually working on an image today that's based on grounding and helping me remember that. I do a lot of creative writing. I think people who are musical can explore with this, with songwriting or just playing with different tunes. So creativity is an incredible form of self-care. And we have had it for as long as our ancestors have existed. They were drawing on the walls of caves because it does something for us. It moves energy through our bodies and it heals us from the inside out. So those are a few of the things I do.
I love that. I love them all. Love them all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. Being creative. That's where my mind is. I guess I never thought of it as being self-care. Like I'm on this journey of being self-employed in a year, right? So part of it is coming up with like designs and being creative. And I guess I never thought of that. It's like, that really is you truly taking time out of your day to do something that you enjoy. And that feeds the soul a little bit, So that's really interesting. I never thought of that.
Well, and from the system perspective, creating art is really regulating because it allows for a process called sublimation where things can move through you and sort of transform into something else. So your anxiety that feels like it's stuck and buzzing around in your body, once you put it to paper or canvas, it can start to create an external image that holds that and can reflect a lot of meaning to you. So it no longer has to live inside. It can still exist and share its lessons, but outside of you, where you can breathe into it, you can process it at your own time. So it's really regulating. And it can be like a friend, you have all these images that you're like, oh, wow, I learned this from that one, or I shared this with that person. And
I like to where now I'm actually like, yes, this is therapeutic. And a lot of the images that I've been making lately are from songs or music that I love. And I'm huge on lyrics. Like I love lyrics, but I'm not going to make shirts with lyrics on them. Like the lyrics to me, like you said it earlier on, finding a word to identify a feeling. So like I'm hearing the word and how it makes me feel, making the art that reflects perfectly, saying to me what it is I'm seeing when I hear the song and putting it out in art. Seeing like I made a design that when I printed it out and it was now real, it's not in my mind. And it is something that I heard in a song that made me think of this image. And then seeing it, I was like, this is the coolest day ever. Like, I remember being like, holy shit, I can't believe I did this thing. And that has been a lot of fun for me. So now I get really excited when I hear good music and like see an image in my mind. I'm like, oh, I have to make that because that's going to be great. So that's cool.
So both of you will laugh. So my art therapy is actually the podcast, right? Because I get to use that side of my brain that I don't typically use at work. And I can get so creative and, listening through every episode and, writing the show notes and doing the newsletter and the blogs. I get so much out of this, right? That I can do a little bit of introspection when I've done it, or people that have listened to certain episodes and have said, man, that really helped me get over this hump. And so to me, our little podcast is my passion project. And I love doing it so much. And I get to learn and grow at the same time. And at 60, yes, you can still learn and grow. You really can. I find so much joy out of it. It's funny though. My wife's like, I've never seen you work so hard on something you don't get paid for. But to me, it's not work. It's something I enjoy doing so much. And this is how I found my joy. So
aww, sweet.
That's
You're getting paid in other ways, Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why people who create things on social media or anywhere else through technology, they've come to become called creators because it is a creative process. So it's really important to do as you're saying. And think outside the box in terms of what creativity is, that it doesn't always have to be with art materials. It doesn't always have to be in the traditional creative formats that we may have experienced in elementary school. It can be creating a podcast. It can be designing an algorithm or even designing a staycation. It could be applying your makeup. It could be any number of things. Playing with your kids in the dirt can be very creative. So just like the process of creativity is creative, just thinking up all of this.
Yeah. It's just been great. I'm so happy. This made me happy.
Too.
This was like food for my soul. I love
it. It was. Are you going to ask your actor studio question today?
Wait, the actor studio question? Yes. 2 questions. Question number 1, Kate. Don't giggle at me. Question number 1, Kate.
The voice.
I don't know what the voice is, but I will do my best.
Okay.
What has been the hardest lesson you have learned to date?
Lesson I've learned. This is one I've learned this year, actually. Sometimes it's better to feel the peacefulness of not having someone in your life that was important to you than it is to tolerate the distress that they bring into it.
Oh. Wow. That's great. that hits hard, but wow. I'm speechless. That has taken words out of my mouth. That is amazing. Okay. Second question. If you could go back in time to a younger version of yourself and give yourself a piece of advice, what would you tell yourself and how old are you?
Well, as you're talking, I'm imagining my maybe 3.5-year-old self. I've done a lot of work with that inner child, and I envision her, little yellow pigtails, overalls, playing in the willows outside of her house. Just a lot of creativity. And I actually have done this in visualization with her many times. I go visit her, I sit with her, I invite her to sit on my lap, and I just let her know that at the end of it all, I'll be with her. I'll always be with her, and she's not alone.
Oh, that's really sweet. Don't cry. Suck it up. Get it together.
Sucking it up. I've been very good all day today. I haven't cried once, so almost cried this morning.
That answer really quick actually is very, so I go back to a 4-year-old version of myself, but I've never actually visualized like having that interaction with myself. I just know that it would be my 4-year-old self because of a home video I saw of that inner child at 4. And I'm like, that is the time I would, if I can time travel back as myself, that would be the age. So I'm going to try that. I'll try that on my own time where I'm not crying on a podcast like 4-year-old.
Honestly, I invite you to do it because I think when you incorporate a visual experience, it allows that healing, that inner child work to be embodied and experiential instead of just cognitive and theoretical. So when we feel it and we're using our senses, our visual sense, even in our imagination, our brain doesn't know the difference between an imagined imagery or something that comes through our eyes. It's just imagery to the brain. So when you imagine interacting with your inner child lovingly, your brain thinks it's actually happening, and it produces a cascade of neurohormones and neurotransmitters that are aligned with what's happening. So you'll actually have more love and more support flowing through your system, even though it's visualization.
It's so cool. Thank you.
That is so cool. I'm going to do that. So, Miss Kate, where can everybody find you?
My hub is theradiantlifeproject.com. That's where you can find out about me and my events. You can get my new book. You can also get it on Amazon. It's called The Radiant Life Project. And I'm also on all the social media platforms at The Radiant Life Project. I like to drop little free tidbits for healing and little ideas there. So find me, theradiantlifeproject.com.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a perfect way to end the day.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I know. I agree. Thank you, Kate. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, be vulnerable, share your life experiences.
Oh, yes.
It's been awesome.
I have been patiently waiting for this date in my calendar. I've been so excited to talk to both of you. So thank you for allowing me space on your show and to connect with you both. It's been such a joy.
Of course.
We're now part of the family. So.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You're part of the family. We get invested in every guest, but also we got to have her back, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
We do. We would love to have you back. Won't be till 2025 because we are now completely booked for 2024.
Yay! Congratulations.
How any of this happened is completely beyond the two of us. But I'm so excited and I'm so proud of you. And we are going to be interviewing another art therapist from Australia next month. I'm going to connect the two of you, because you guys really have the same mission and the same heart and soul. And I think that you guys would really connect.
Oh, thanks. I love being connected with people who are aligned. I appreciate that. And I would love to come back on your show anytime you want. Talking to the two of you is fantastic. I feel like we could talk all day.
I know, right?
We could, who knows? Maybe by the next time we meet, we'll be like making money.
I hope so.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing weekend.
Yeah, enjoy your weekend. Hi, all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm G-Rex.
And I'm Dirty Skittles.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'd love to listen to your feedback.
We can't do this without you guys.
It's okay to be not okay. Just make sure you're talking to someone.